Happy Hump Day. Welcome back. This is Mets Daily, and I am Jake Brown. Make sure you smash that thumbs up on this video. Hit that subscribe button below. Hit that share button with any Mets fan that you know or love. And subscribe to my YouTube right there at Jake Brown Live. We moved it over because we have something else here. And you can follow me on all social media at Jake Brown Live. Sorry we missed yesterday, my first time day off of the off season. That is because I was in New York City on Monday, Tuesday, and happy to announce that I, after 14 months of searching, have a new full-time position as a showrunner for the Gold Studios. I'll be launching a couple of their new sports shows that they'll be doing, so we're looking for talent, and we'll be looking for new shows there. So that is my new full-time job. I'll be back in New York City for now 2 days a week, some weeks 3 days, and then the hope is, if all goes well, that I will be moving back to New York by the time the Mets season starts in either March or April. So thank you for your support on that. Let's get right to business because on the day off, there's a lot of Mets rumors, and one of them, Jeff Passan from ESPN, talking about guys that could be traded. And, the Mets are open for business, guys. We've talked about the core needing to change and the attitude needing to change, and certain personalities need to be shipped out of town. Certain contracts need to be shipped out of town, and just a change in what this team is. And Jeff Passan listed these guys as guys available. Kodai Senga, who's extremely available, were the words put out there. Brandon Nimmo, who I think the Mets would love to get rid of if they don't have to eat a significant portion of that contract. That's always been the issue, which we've talked about. Brett Baty, the one name on this list that I wouldn't call a surprise, but of the six, I would think Mets fans, after the year he had, he's the least likely of these that people want to trade. But again, Brett Baty isn't untouchable. I think people looked at what he did this year and they're thinking, how do you trade Brett Baty now? The reality is he had a good year, but prior to that, he sucked. So I think he is available and everyone's available. So Baty, still has, hasn't even hit arbitration. So the bad side of trading Brett Baty is that he's still super cheap. So do you want to trade a guy that's costing you, less than $1 million? I don't know. Mark Vientos, I think the Mets really have to trade at this point. I think he's just a DH. I think ego got the best of Mark Vientos after his great season in 2024, and he really took a hit in 2025. And, I still think he has a bright future, but he is a designated hitter. He is not a defensive player. So, listen, if the Mets want to make him a full-time DH, fine, but I'm also very ready to ship Mark Vientos out. Luis Angel Acuna, I think the way David Stearns has spoke, I think he's going to do all he can to move Luis Angel Acuna, and that's not a knock on him. He's hitting well in winter ball here, but the reality is I think the Mets view him as a late-game defensive replacement and a pinch runner. I don't think they view him as a starting infielder for them right now, and I think the Mets want to ship Luis Angel Acuna. I don't know if there's an attitude issue as well. I don't know, but I think it's pretty clear the Mets would like to put Acuna in a package. I'd be a little bit surprised if he's here. And then Jeff McNeil. The guys that I'll say this. On this list, the guys I would be surprised if they were on the roster at this point, just from the rumblings. I would be surprised if Kodai Senga is on the Mets roster. I would be surprised if Jeff McNeil's on the Mets roster. I'd be a little bit surprised if Acuna's on the roster. And I'd be surprised if Vientos is on the roster. I think Brandon Nimmo is going to be tough to deal. I think the Mets are going to try. But 5 years, $102 million for a 33-year-old who is, I think well on his way to some injury issues and becoming a DH. I know he's played 150-plus games the last couple of years, but he is, one injury waiting to happen. He dealt with plantar fasciitis. He was limping on it during the playoffs. Had a couple of neck issues last year, neck, back, neck, back, my pussy and my crack, in the words of the rap song, whatever song that was. Brandon Nimmo, I'd be a little surprised if he was shipped out just because no trade clause and all that money. We'll see what the Mets want to eat. And I'd be a little surprised if they traded Brett Baty because I do think he profiles to start on this team at third base, unless the Mets get Alex Bregman. If the Mets go out there and trade for a Brandon Lau or a Ketel Marte to play second, and then they sign Alex Bregman, then yeah, sure. Trade Brett Baty. You have no use for him. But we'll see. We'll see where they end up on those fronts. But the guys that'd be surprised on the Mets would be McNeil and Senga. McNeil 1, Senga 2, Vientos 3, Acuna 4, Baty 5, Nimmo 6, in that order. But Change is coming, guys, and you got to be comfortable with change. I wouldn't be comfortable with change if it means we're adding Devin Williams. Devin Williams, to me, and people can look at the strikeout rates and all the extra analytics they want. Let's just keep it real. Devin Williams sucked in 2025 on the New York Yankees. He just wasn't good. You can tell me all you want about the strikeouts and this and that. The reality is you look at his full body of work on the season, and Devin Williams sucked. 4.79 ERA over 62 innings, gave up 45 hits. Sure, he struck out 90 guys. Strikeouts, great. But that ERA, his implosions, I would not feel comfortable with Devin Williams. And that was in New York. He's going to stick around in New York. Is the pressure too much for him? Now, prior to that, the guy for 3 straight seasons and really 5 consecutive seasons was one of the best relievers in baseball. So was that an outlier? Maybe. But I don't know if I'm comfortable, especially if they move on from Diaz, and you're telling me Devin Williams is the Mets closer. I don't know. I feel like the Alonso homer in 2024, the playoffs, I don't know if they broke him, but since then, he has not looked the same. And I would just rather the Mets avoid Devin Williams. Now, if you told me the Mets are signing Edwin Diaz and Devin Williams, then I'm fine. Because, at that point, he's a 7th, 8th inning guy. You have A.J. Minter, you have Brooks Raley, Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz. Then you got a bit of a super pen. But if it's just Devin Williams and other pieces, and Devin Williams is either setting up Minter or Minter is setting up Devin Williams, I'm not a fan. But all will rely on this guy, and that's Edwin Diaz, who has declined his qualifying offer. Remember, the qualifying offer is around $22 million. He's going to end up getting that AAV per year for at least 4 years. I think the minimum Edwin Diaz gets at this point smells like 4 years, $88 million. That feels like the bare minimum that Edwin Diaz is going to get. With the chance of 5 for 100, with the chance of 4 for 90, I think Edwin Diaz is going to get paid handsomely. And from all the tea leaves, it feels like, I'm not sure. I don't think anyone's sure if it's going to be in a Mets uniform. But like we've talked about, the reality is it has to be in the Mets uniform. I think the Mets need to do all they can to make Edwin Diaz a New York Met until he's 37 years old, 4 years, 5 years. So do they sign him back? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you hit those comments. We're going to read your comments from Monday's show in just a second. But I think it's critical to this Mets offseason. I will be very concerned if they move on from him because all the plan Bs do not excite me. In other Mets news, happy birthday to Francisco Alvarez, who turns 24 today. Happy birthday to Alvy. Also, Frankie Montas has been released. And Montas released, now we didn't put it as a graphic because he was out next season anyway. We knew he was gone, but they've got rid of Frankie Montas, clearing that roster spot for Nick Murabito. So Murabito is now on the Mets 40-man roster, thus protecting him from the upcoming Rule 5 draft. Teams have until Tuesday at 6 p.m. to protect players from the Rule 5 draft, which will take place on December 10th. Remember, Frankie Montas exercised his $17 million option. He's expected to miss the entire season following elbow surgery, and he will get paid to basically do nothing as the Mets have released him. What a terrible signing that was. We've talked about it. Don't need to go into it much more. Just a complete, utter waste of money. A disgraceful signing by David Stearns. And he's got to make up for that. And that's why, trading Senga and revamping this rotation is one of the Mets' main plans this offseason. Murabito, a 6th-round pick of the Mets in 2022, spent last season in Double-A Binghamton, posting a .733 OPS with 6 homers and 59 RBIs. He's had an excellent Arizona Fall League, where he's hitting .362 with a .450 on base, 16 stolen bases in 17 games. So Murabito profiles as a center fielder, number 13 overall prospect in the Mets system. Let's see if he gets a chance in 2026. If he's not traded, I look at Murabito as more of a factor potentially in 2027. All right, folks, let's get to your comments from Monday's show. Keep on commenting below. Keep on smashing that thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button as we close in on 2,500 subscribers. We appreciate your support. From @AddictedToJB, is Michael Toglia available? He is. The Rockies have recently waived Michael Toglia yesterday, so he is available. Now, the reality is the guy has some upside, but boy, does he strike out a lot. There's a reason, if the Rockies are getting rid of you, I would not feel the best about your outlook. Now, he's got some pop. This is a guy that hit 25 homers in 2024, but last year really tailed off with 11 and 32 and on base of just 258. So, that is a guy that maybe you take a flyer on, but I don't think any fan would stomach going into the 2026 season with Michael Toglia as your starting first baseman. From Strike Blitz, the Mets need to go all in on Jonathan Aranda. He's arbitration eligible next year, and the Rays have been known to sell guys once they hit arbitration years. Not a bad point, Strike Blitz. Now, after the year he had, I don't know why the Rays would just – I get what you're saying financially, but this guy's just hitting his stride. Like right when he's going to hit his stride, you're going to get rid of him. 14 homers, 59 RBIs, hit 316 with a 393 on base in just 106 games. I mean, he was an all-star. This guy could be a star. And I don't know. I still think when you're arbitration eligible, he's still super cheap. Now maybe you sell him high now, but I don't know. I don't think it makes a ton of sense in the world, but I'm certainly intrigued. A guy who plays first base, he could DH for you. Is that your replacement? I wouldn't hate the Mets going cheaper route, getting him, and then going all in the rotation, trying to get Ketel Marte, trying to sign Bellinger. If that's the case, if you're telling me the Mets are trading for Aranda, they're signing Cody Bellinger, and they're trading for Ketel Marte, and then obviously revamping the rotation, I'm in. But again, I'd just be a little surprised if the Rays would move him. But I'd definitely talk to the Rays. Like I've said, you're going to talk to the Rays about Yandy Diaz. You're going to talk to the Rays about Brandon Lau. I didn't even think about Jonathan Aranda. So not a bad point. I'd just be surprised. From Roman J, if the Mets' chance to get Ketel Marte in a trade are high, it's because Jet Williams be a part of that package. 100%. I've said on here a lot. I think it's a lock Jet Williams gets traded this offseason. I think, when you look at guys Mets want to trade, I think he's their preference over Carson Bench. I feel like Bench is nearly untouchable. I don't think Sproat and Tong are untouchable, but I think the Mets want to at least keep one of them around. I don't think they want to get rid of both of them. But I could see Tong or Sproat getting moved. I could definitely see Jet Williams getting moved. From Dixie Norm, if the Mets lose Pete, sign Schwarber and either trade for Yandy or sign Goldschmidt, trade for Buxton and Jet and second or sign Bichette and play Benj in center. All right, a lot happening there, Dixie. If the Mets lose, sign Schwarber. Again, Schwarber's not coming to the Mets. I think we could rule that out. He's a DH. He's just not coming. I think a trade for Yandy or signing Goldschmidt is possible. I think if they sign Goldschmidt, they got to go all in at every other position. Like, if you sign Goldschmidt, then yeah, you got to try and trade for Buxton. You got to try and sign Bellinger. You got to try and sign Bregman. You got to go crazy if you're telling me I'm giving Goldschmidt a year at $10 million. Yandy, I think you're going to get nice production out of where you don't have to go nuts. But again, if you get Yandy, then you probably got to tell me, hey, we got Ketel Marte or we got Bellinger and someone else. Storm Villain says, just pay Alonso. The disrespect from the Mets. Mr. Okay, Naylor gets $20 million a year. Easy F out of here. We give Soto, Mr. Future DH, bum $700 million. Give Alonso $200. Pete going to last longer than Soto. I disagree. Again, you're talking about Pete, who's 31. Soto's in his prime at 26. Soto's a World Series champion, and Pete Alonso hasn't won a damn thing. So, again, you got to talk about winning here. Josh Naylor's deal ended up being for $92.5 million. It's an absolute bargain. The Mets missed out on that, but they didn't really miss out because clearly Naylor wanted to go back to Seattle. Wayne says no on Goldschmidt. Kenneth Flood says no Goldie. O. Isaac says let's go Mets. J.M. Valentine says no sales tax in Washington. Good for Naylor. We still need to move on from Alonso. I agree. Roman says I trade for Yandy as an add-on, not replacement. I think if you're trading for Yandy, though, I'd be a little surprised if they keep Pete around. I know Yandy can DH, maybe even play a little bit of third, but I would think if they get Yandy, he is Pete's replacement. All right, folks, thanks for your comments. Keep on commenting below. Smash that thumbs up, subscribe. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live on YouTube and all social media. That's the Mets Daily Insider QR code. Just $5 a month if you want to support the channel, or you can hit me up on how to support the channel as well on my social. Shoot me a message. Thank you for your support, everyone. Back in the New York groove. I'll be back again in the city on Monday and Tuesday, following week for a couple days as well. So glad to be back. I was eating good in the neighborhood. My stomach is still struggling today, and we'll be back tomorrow on Mets Daily. Thanks for watching.